Have you ever felt completely drained by a single person, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, even spiritually? The kind of person who walks into your life and suddenly your peace disappears. They criticize everything you do. They twist your words. They take your kindness and use it against you, and no matter how hard you try to explain yourself, nothing ever changes. You tell yourself, next time, I won't react. But the moment they speak, something inside you snaps again. On gérise. Frustration takes over, and just like that, you've lost control. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The problem is not just that they are toxic. The problem is that they still have power over you. And that's the part no one wants to admit, because modern culture has given you a very simple solution. Cut them off, block them, ignore them, remove them from your life. And for a moment, that feels powerful. But over time, it changes you. You become colder, more guarded, more isolated. Because if you keep cutting off every difficult person, eventually, there will be no one left. So the question becomes, is running away really the answer? Or is there a deeper way to deal with toxic people without losing your peace or your identity? Because here's something most people don't realize. Jesus dealt with toxic people every single day. Not just annoying people, but manipulators, critics, people who tried to trap him, discredit him, even destroy him. And yet, he never lost his peace. He never reacted emotionally. He never allowed their behavior to control who he was. So what did he know that you don't? What gave him that level of control in the middle of constant pressure? Because the way Jesus handled toxic people is completely different from the way the world tells you to do it. He didn't just avoid them. He didn't just fight them. He didn't become cold. He operated from something higher, something most people never learn. In this video, you're going to discover exactly how Jesus dealt with toxic people, from those who constantly criticize you, to those who drain your energy, to the ones who betray you when you least expect it. And more importantly, you're going to learn how to face them without losing your peace, without losing your identity, and without giving them control over your life ever again. Because once you understand this, toxic people don't just become easier to deal with, they lose their power completely. And that's when everything changes. Did you know? The person draining your energy is not actually the real problem? That sounds wrong at first, because from your perspective, it's obvious. They are the one criticizing you. They are the one manipulating you. They are the one causing the stress, the frustration, the emotional exhaustion. So how could they not be the problem? But Jesus saw something most people completely miss. He didn't just look at behavior. He looked beneath it. And what he saw changes everything. Because toxic behavior is not the root issue. It's a symptom, a signal, a manifestation of something deeper, something broken inside that person. Think about it. People who constantly try to control others are often the ones who feel completely out of control inside. People who criticize everything you do are usually the ones who secretly hate themselves. People who create drama everywhere they go are often the ones who have never experienced real peace. In other words, you are not dealing with a difficult person. You are dealing with a wounded soul. And the moment you truly understand that, something shifts inside you, because now it's no longer personal. Before, every word they said felt like an attack. Every action felt intentional. Every conflict felt like proof that they were against you. But now, you begin to see something else. You see fear behind their control. You see insecurity behind their criticism. You see pain behind their anger. And suddenly, they lose a level of power over you. This is exactly how Jesus saw people. There were crowds constantly demanding from him. Religious leaders trying to trap him. People misunderstanding him, accusing him, rejecting him. And yet the Bible says something shocking. He felt compassion for them, not anger, not frustration, compassion. Why? Because he saw their condition. He saw that they were like sheep without a shepherd, lost, confused, broken. Now here's the part most people get wrong. Compassion does not mean tolerance. It does not mean you allow bad behavior. It does not mean you let people walk all over you. It simply means you stop taking everything personally. And that alone is power. Because toxic people feed on your reactions. They gain control when you get emotional. They gain influence when you feel attacked. But when you see them clearly, not as a threat, but as someone operating from brokenness, their words hit differently. Their actions lose weight. Their presence stops controlling your internal state. You become untouchable, not because they changed, but because your perception changed, and that's where real control begins. But don't mistake this for weakness, because understanding someone doesn't mean you submit to them. In fact, this is only the first step, because what you're about to learn next will challenge everything the world has taught you about dealing with toxic people, and most people get it completely wrong. Did you know? The way most people deal with toxic individuals is actually making things worse. The world has trained you to believe one simple solution: cut them off, block them, ignore them, remove them completely from your life. And at first it feels powerful. It feels like control, like you're finally protecting your peace. But here's the deeper truth no one tells you. If your only strategy is to run, you never actually gain control. You just avoid the problem. And eventually, it shows up again, in a different person, in a different place, in a different form. Because toxic people are not rare. They are everywhere. At work, in friendships, in relationships, even in your own family. So if your solution is to eliminate every difficult person, where does that leave you? Alone, isolated, constantly rebuilding your environment just to feel okay. And over time, something even more dangerous happens. You become colder, more defensive, less trusting. You stop opening up. You stop connecting, not because you're strong, but because you're protecting yourself from being hurt again. And that's not freedom. That's fear, disguised as control. Now here's where Jesus completely flips the script, because he never taught people to run from every difficult situation. He didn't isolate himself from broken people. He didn't avoid conflict. He walked directly into environments filled with criticism, manipulation, and pressure, and remained completely in control. So what did he understand? This: avoidance does not equal strength. Anyone can walk away. Anyone can block someone. Anyone can disappear. But that doesn't mean you've mastered the situation. It just means you've escaped it. Jesus taught something much harder and much more powerful. He taught how to stand firm in the middle of chaos without losing yourself, to stay grounded while everything around you tries to pull you into reaction, to protect your inner peace without shutting down your ability to love. Because here's the reality: if you don't learn how to handle difficult people internally, you will spend your entire life trying to control them externally, and that will never work. You can't control what people say. You can't control how they act. You can't control their attitude, their tone, or their behavior. But you can control one thing: how you respond. And that changes everything. Because the moment your peace is no longer dependent on other people's behavior, you become free, truly free. Now, this doesn't mean you should tolerate abuse. It doesn't mean you should stay in harmful situations. There are times when distance is necessary, but distance is not your first line of defense. It's your last, because real power is not found in running away from toxic people. It's found in becoming someone they can no longer affect. And that kind of control starts from within. But here's the problem. Even when you decide to stand your ground, there's one trap that almost everyone falls into. And it's exactly what toxic people want. Because if they can pull you into this, they win instantly. And what you're about to learn next might be the most practical weapon you'll ever have. Did you know? Toxic people don't actually want resolution. They want reaction. That's what fuels them. That's what keeps them engaged. That's what gives them power over you. Because the moment you start arguing, explaining, defending yourself, you've already lost. Not because you're wrong, but because you've entered their game, and their game is built on one thing: emotional control. They provoke, you react, they twist your words, you try harder to explain, they escalate, you get frustrated, and before you realize it, you're no longer in control of yourself. You're operating inside their chaos. This is exactly why Jesus almost never engaged in pointless arguments. Think about it. He was constantly challenged. People questioned his authority. They tried to trap him with clever questions. They accused him publicly. If anyone had the right to defend himself, it was him. And yet, he didn't. At least not in the way you would expect. Instead of long debates, he often responded with silence, or a simple question, or sometimes nothing at all. Why? Because he understood something most people don't. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Let that sink in. Every time someone tries to provoke you, you have a choice: not to win, not to prove a point, but to decide, is this even worth my energy? Because toxic people rely on one thing: your engagement. If you don't react, they lose momentum. If you don't argue, they lose control. If you don't explain, they lose access to your mind. And that's when the dynamic shifts. Now here's the hard truth. Most people struggle with this because silence feels like weakness. It feels like you're letting them win. It feels like you're not defending yourself. But in reality, silence is not weakness. It is disciplining. It means you are no longer controlled by impulse. You are no longer reacting emotionally. You are choosing your response instead of being dragged into one. And that is power. Because when you argue with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you, you don't clarify the truth. You waste your energy. There's a reason for this. Toxic people don't listen to understand. They listen to respond, to twist, to attack. So no matter how perfectly you explain yourself, it won't matter. They've already decided what they believe, and your words will only be used against you. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do is simply not engage. Stay calm. Stay grounded. Say less, or say nothing at all. Walk away if needed, because peace is not found in winning arguments. It's found in refusing to participate in unnecessary ones. Now, this doesn't mean you never speak up. There are moments that require truth. There are times when you must respond, but those moments are intentional, not emotional, not reactive. And that difference changes everything. Because when you stop reacting impulsively, toxic people can no longer predict you. They can no longer control you. And without that control, they lose their power completely. But even with silence, there's still a deeper challenge. Because some people won't just argue with you. They will drain you, slowly, relentlessly. And if you don't learn how to deal with that, silence alone won't be enough. What you need next is something most people are afraid to use. Did you know? Some toxic people don't attack you. They drain you, quietly, consistently, relentlessly. They don't argue. They don't criticize. Instead, they take your time, your energy, your attention, your peace. And the most dangerous part? They make it feel like your responsibility. They call you when they need help. They expect you to always be available. They rely on you but are never there for you. And if you ever try to step back, they make you feel guilty, selfish, wrong. So you keep giving and giving and giving until one day you feel completely empty. Now here's the question. Why does this happen? Because deep down you've been taught something that sounds good, but is actually dangerous. You've been taught that being a good person means always being available, always saying yes, always sacrificing yourself for others. But Jesus never lived like that. Let that sink in. He loved people deeply. He helped people constantly. He healed, taught, gave, served, and yet he did not give everyone unlimited access to his life. There were moments when crowds surrounded him, demanding miracles, demanding attention, demanding more. And what did he do? He left. He walked away. He got into a boat. He went somewhere quiet, not because he didn't care, but because he understood something most people ignore. If you don't protect your energy, you will lose your purpose. You cannot be everything to everyone. You cannot fix everyone. You cannot carry everyone. And if you try, you will burn out. And when you're burned out, you have nothing left to give. Not to others, not to yourself, not even to God. That's why boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary. A boundary simply means this: I choose what I allow into my life. It means you decide how much access someone has to your time, how much influence they have over your emotions, how close they are allowed to get to your inner world. And here's the part most people struggle with. Sometimes, love requires distance. You can care about someone and still say no. You can pray for them and still step back. You can wish them well and still not allow them to drain your life, because access is earned, not given blindly. Even Jesus had levels of relationship. He spoke to crowds. He taught a group. He walked closely with 12, and only a few were allowed into his most personal moments. Not everyone had the same access, and neither should you. Because when you give toxic people unlimited access, they don't just take your energy, they take your identity. They slowly shape how you think, how you feel, how you respond, until one day, you don't even recognize yourself anymore. So let this be clear. Setting boundaries is not rejection. It is protection. It is choosing peace over pressure, purpose over guilt, clarity over chaos. And once you learn to do this, everything changes. But even boundaries won't prepare you for the most painful kind of toxic person, the one you didn't expect, the one you trusted, the one who gets close enough to hurt you the deepest. And what you're about to learn next is where most people break completely. Did you know? The most painful toxic people are not strangers. They're the ones closest to you, the ones you trusted, the ones you opened your heart to. Because it's easy to ignore someone you don't care about. It's easy to walk away from a stranger. But when the person hurting you is a friend, a partner, a family member, that's different. That cuts deeper. Because now it's not just frustration, it's betrayal. And betrayal does something dangerous. It doesn't just hurt you, it changes you. It makes you question your judgment. It makes you build walls. It makes you colder, more guarded, less open. And if you're not careful, it will slowly turn you into someone you were never meant to be. Now here's something most people don't realize. Jesus experienced betrayal at the highest level, not from an enemy, but from someone in his inner circle, Judas, one of the 12, someone who walked with him, talked with him, lived life with him for years. Judas saw the miracles. He heard the teachings. He was trusted. And yet, he was the one who betrayed him. Now here's the shocking part. Jesus knew, from the beginning, he knew. He knew Judas would betray him. He knew the outcome. He knew the moment would come. And still, he chose to love him. He chose to keep him close. He chose to treat him like everyone else. Now ask yourself this. How do you treat someone when you know they will hurt you? Most people would distance themselves, expose them, protect themselves at all costs. But Jesus did something completely unexpected. At the final meal, in one of the most emotional moments in history, he did something that breaks human logic. He got up, took a towel, knelt down, and washed the feet of his disciples. Now think about that. This was the role of a servant, dirty, humble, low. And Judas was there, which means Jesus knelt before the man who was about to betray him and washed his feet, calmly, fully aware. No anger, no bitterness, no change in his character. And that reveals something powerful. Toxic people can hurt you, but they don't have the power to change who you are unless you let them. Because the real danger of betrayal is not the pain, it's what you become after it. If you become bitter, they win. If you become hateful, they win. If you lose your ability to love, they win. Jesus refused that outcome. He chose to remain who he was, no matter what Judas chose to be. And that is one of the highest levels of emotional and spiritual strength. Now, this doesn't mean you ignore betrayal. It doesn't mean you stay in harmful relationships. It doesn't mean you pretend everything is okay. It means something deeper. You protect your heart without hardening it. You keep your identity without letting pain redefine you. Because once someone changes your nature, they didn't just hurt you, they reshaped you. And that is a loss far greater than the betrayal itself. But even betrayal is not the most dangerous thing, because there is something else, something invisible, something that quietly grows inside you after every toxic interaction. And if you don't deal with it, it will destroy your peace from the inside out. What you're about to discover next is the real trap. Did you know? The most dangerous part of dealing with toxic people is not what they do to you, it's what happens inside you after, because the real damage doesn't come from their words or their actions or even their betrayal. It comes from something much quieter, much more subtle, something that grows slowly without you even noticing. Offense, resentment, bitterness, that feeling you replay in your mind over and over again. What they said, what they did, what you should have said, what you should have done. And without realizing it, you are no longer just dealing with a toxic person. You are carrying them inside you, everywhere you go. And that is the trap. Because toxic people don't need to be around you to affect you. If they live in your mind, they still control you. Now here's the truth most people never accept. Holding on to offense doesn't punish them. It poisons you. It drains your peace. It clouds your thinking. It steals your joy. It blocks your ability to move forward. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. But they don't. They move on. They forget. They continue living their life while you stay stuck, replaying the same moment again and again. And this is exactly why Jesus warned so strongly about it. Because offense is not just an emotion. It's a trap. Once you take it, it holds you. It shapes your attitude. It affects your relationships. It even interferes with your connection to God. You become closed, guarded, reactive. You lose your peace from the inside out. So what's the solution? It's not revenge. It's not confrontation. It's not proving them wrong. It's something far more difficult and far more powerful. Forgiveness. Now be honest. You don't want to hear that because forgiveness feels unfair. It feels like letting them win. It feels like saying what they did was okay. But that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. It's about releasing the weight so you can breathe again, so you can move again, so you can live again. Jesus said something that completely breaks human logic. Not just forgive once, not just forgive when they apologize, but forgive again and again and again. Why? Because every time the memory comes back, the feeling comes back, and you have to let it go again, until one day, it no longer controls you. And here's where it goes even deeper. Jesus didn't just say, forgive them. He said, pray for them, bless them, do good to them. Now that sounds impossible. Why would you pray for someone who hurt you? Because something changes when you do. Not always them, but you. Your heart softens, your anger fades, your perspective shifts. You stop seeing them as the enemy and start seeing them as someone broken, someone lost, someone in need of grace, just like you. And in that moment, you become free. Free from the weight, free from the anger, free from the control they once had over you. Because the truth is, toxic people don't destroy your peace. Unforgiveness does. And once you let that go, they lose their power completely. And that's when you realize you were never a victim. You just needed to take back control. So now you understand the truth. Toxic people were never the real enemy. Not their words, not their behavior, not even their betrayal. The real battle was always happening inside you. Because every toxic interaction gives you two choices: lose yourself or master yourself. And most people, without realizing it, choose the first. They react, they argue, they hold on to anger, they replay the pain. They let someone else's behavior control their emotions, their thoughts, even their identity. And slowly, they lose their peace. But now you see it differently. Now you understand the pattern. Toxic people operate from brokenness. They feed on your reactions. They drain your energy when you have no boundaries. They hurt you deepest when they are closest. But none of that defines you unless you allow it. Because the moment you apply what you've learned, everything changes. You stop taking things personally. You stop engaging in meaningless conflict. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You start protecting your energy. You start choosing your response instead of reacting emotionally. You start letting go instead of holding on. And that is where real power begins. Not when people change, but when you do. Because here's the truth most people never reach. Peace is not something you find. It's something you maintain, no matter who stands in front of you. Jesus was surrounded by chaos, pressure, criticism, betrayal, and yet he remained steady, unshaken, untouchable. Not because people treated him well, but because he refused to let their behavior control his inner world. And that same level of control is available to you. But it requires something most people avoid: responsibility. Not for what others do, but for how you respond. So the next time you face that difficult person, the one who used to trigger you, the one who used to drain you, pause and ask yourself, do they still have power over me? Because the moment the answer becomes no, you are free. Free from their words, free from their behavior, free from the emotional chains that once controlled you. And that freedom is something no toxic person can ever take away again. So what do you think? Are you ready to face them differently? If this message helped you see things more clearly, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need it. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Because your peace is your power, and your power is something worth protecting.